Around 1990, we began to get letters that read as follows. While the characteristics document is a real help and we're grateful for it, can you now tell us how we can make it real in the daily interaction between teachers and students so that it can become an effective way of proceeding, an effective pedagogy for use in the classrooms, and therefore will have a real effect. When we got those requests, I must say I was simultaneously delighted and really traumatized, and I'll tell you why. Because on the one hand, it said, the very question said that they took the characteristics document seriously and now wanted to move on to using it and not leave it on a shelf somewhere as an historical document. On the other hand, what they were saying was, how do you go from theory into practice? Now, from my own training and experience, I know how difficult that is at almost any level. But when you're talking about something on a worldwide level, with all of the differences that exist among cultures, from one government to another, even within the United States, from one state to another with regard to educational regulations, etc., the challenges become immense. We needed to move ahead, and so with the International Commission, we set to work again, and we were convinced at the outset, as we said, where should we aim this? What should be the audience that we intend for this document? We decided we were not going to aim it at scholars in pedagogy, but we really wanted to aim it at professors, teachers, etc., people who could use it. And we called the document Ignatian Pedagogy, a Practical Approach, so that it would be seen clearly as being not a speculative document, but something that would introduce a practical pedagogy. It's called Ignatian Pedagogy precisely because as we wrestled with how do you cut into this thing, which really should be applicable universally, despite all the differences that exist, we went to the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, and especially to the introductory remarks in the little book of the exercises that are Ignatius's instructions for the person who's giving or leading, directing the exercises. He calls them annotations. They're basically brief instructions. And as you read through them, they are basically and fundamentally pedagogical. And so what we did was, we found our inspiration there to begin, and adapting precisely the pedagogical implications of what was being said in each of them, we began to formulate what is, we believe, a true Ignatian pedagogy. The statements themselves appear in the text of the document on Ignatian pedagogy as the first appendix. Some overriding pedagogical principles, Ignatian annotations. And we quote the annotation now adapted for education. With that as a background, and focusing upon the Ignatian principle that a director, pedagogically, should, as his or her function, have solely the facilitation of the interaction between the retreatant and the Spirit of God, and not get in the way, but try to facilitate that. We saw the same sort of paradigm developing in terms of the teacher. The teacher should try to facilitate the relationship between a student and an understanding of truth and its implications, and not, in effect, impose between or in any way block it. And so we defined Ignatian pedagogy very simply, from a non-technical point of view, what we think an accurate one, as saying that pedagogy is the way in which teachers accompany learners in their growth and development. Pedagogy, which is the art and science of teaching, more formally defined, cannot simply be reduced to methodology, to a bag of tricks. It must include a worldview and a vision of the ideal person whom we want to educate, what we'd like them to be. Because these provide the goal and the end toward which all aspects of an educational tradition are directed. They also provide criteria for the choices of means to be used in the process of education. And so the worldview and ideal of Jesuit education we saw expressed in the document, the characteristics of Jesuit education. That was one piece. Now what we wanted to do was to take and to specify the way in which teachers could accompany learners in their growth and development in appropriate ways toward those aims. And that is what is developed in this introductory document on Ignatian Pedagogy, a Practical Approach. There are, in the introduction, a number of statements about what the goals of Jesuit education are, etc. Certainly, within the document on the characteristics, we talk about the growth of the full human person with his or her profile of abilities, and issuing in action, responsible action. Father Kolvenbach, Father Arupe put it succinctly as talking about forming men and women for others. Father Kolvenbach stated it in a slightly different fashion, as saying what we're aiming at is to form people of competence. You have to know what they're talking about, or people won't take them seriously. They can't be effective unless they're competent. Therefore, academic excellence is important. People of conscience, people who know the difference between right and wrong. I mean, recent incidents like Enron and what's been going on Wall Street, etc., certainly points up the importance of forming people of conscience, even if you're not from a religious background. And people, therefore, of competence, conscience, but also of compassionate commitment. People who are going to do something with real compassion for those who are in need, and looking at, the least of our brethren, the option for the poor, etc., that Vatican II has asked us to consider, etc., is all part of this. And so this becomes the aim and the way in which we sought to proceed. And what we did was to develop a paradigm, a model, if you will. And the model that we developed has 5 steps in it. It deals with context, experience, reflection, action, and evaluation.